Good day, everyone, and I'm here to welcome you to a second part of my Thunderbolts pitch. So, if you haven't already watched the first part, I'd recommend going and watching it now. Good. So, if you're back here from the first one, just carry on, and I'll give you a quick rundown if either you haven't listened to the first one or you don't really remember what happened. But so, what just happened is the team consisting of Ghost, Red Guardian, Bucky, Yelena, John Walker, and Taskmaster just went to fight Red Guardian. Just went to fight Joe and then fought Graviton. And Graviton and Red Guardian have both just disappeared out of the window because Red Guardian sacrificed himself to save everyone else, essentially. Valentina would call John for a mission report. He'd reply, and she'd tell them that Graviton's warehouse had been emptied. The team would be sent to clear it out. Yelena would get on a motorbike and drive off, while John and Bucky would argue, with Bucky seeing that Yelena needs rest, while John would be saying that the most important thing is the mission. Meanwhile, Ghost and Taskmaster would search through the warehouse and stumble across some files about what Graviton was going to do. While searching, Ava would ask Antonia about Red Guardian, and Taskmaster would relate it to Bill Foster. The scene would cut to some American city, not New York though, and on top of a skyscraper we'd see Graviton hooking a bound and gagged Joe up to his machine. Joe would struggle, a pleading look in his eyes, but be unable to do anything. "Didn't your father teach you anything?" Graviton would ask. "First rule of success, trust no one." He would then start to turn on the machine, and Joe would scream in pain, as a large pulse would emit from the machine and the ground would shake. There'd be a scene of Yelena on a rooftop talking to Natasha, in spirit. Natasha would not be revived from the dead, and deciding that after the mission, and after avenging her father and saving Joe from a terrible fate, she was done. The Thunderbolts would board a jet, and Gus and Taskmaster, with updates from Val, would explain that Graviton was planning on destroying most of North America, disrupting the Earth's gravitational field to destabilize the atmosphere, starting with the city which he was in, which was experiencing gravity disruptions. How is this possible? US agent would ask. Basically, Graviton would be amplifying his powers with the help of Joe and the machine that he had been working on. The plane would eventually arrive, and a gravity pulse would send it crashing out of the sky and into a nearby building. Most of the surrounding buildings would be in ruins or heavily damaged. When they disembarked, another disruption would happen, and they'd all start to rise up along with cars and chunks of buildings before falling to the ground. Police and military would be in the streets, fighting a large squadron of AIM scientists with modified Chitauri weapons, as well as some more extremist enhanced soldiers. The five Thunderbolts would charge in with a scene akin to the start of Age of Ultron, and fight their way through and up the building, dealing with gravity pulses on the way up, which they would use to their advantage, Elena and Ghost especially. They would all reach the roof, and another gravity pulse would happen, causing a crevasse to start to form in the roof, slowly growing wider. Elena and John would get across, and the others would just make it, as the rest of the building collapsed behind them, in sort of large mess that sloped down. The machine would be circular and on a large base, and while Joe would be hooked to the side on his knees and in great pain, Graviton would be standing on a raised platform, his eyes closed and arms attached to two large cables that came from the machine. His eyes would be closed, but would snap open after the largest gravity pulse yet. The machine would continue to whir, but the gravity pulses would stop, and the restraints holding Joe and Graviton would fall away. Graviton's eyes would be pure white and glowing, with his body twitching and smoking as well. "You're too late," he would laugh maniacally. "One more pulse and your entire country will suffer irreparable damage." "I'm British," Gus would say. "And I'm Russian," Taskmaster would say. "And so is White Widow." "As was my father," Yelena would snarl. They'd all fight Graviton. Graviton is hurling huge chunks of rubble and deflecting any attacks that come his way, but the Thunderbolts are working more as a team, and at random points bursts of white energy would explode around Graviton and cause him to stagger. "He's a time bomb," Bucky would say. Joe would unsteadily get to his feet and start to scramble or run away from the fight, and down the destroyed slope of rubble that is what's left of the other half of the building. "You guys deal with Dr. Hall," US agent would yell. "I'll get the boy." He would turn and start to run towards Joe, who'd look over his shoulder and start to crawl quicker. Yelena would hear this and chase after him, leaving Taskmaster, Ghost, and Bucky to fight the unstable Graviton alone. "I have an idea," Ghost would say and rush forwards. Graviton would raise up the floor in front of her, but she'd jump and phase through it, landing on the other side before disappearing into the machine, which would start to whir louder and sputter. Graviton would flick his hand and send a piece of rubble to slam into a charging Taskmaster, knocking it off the roof before yelling, "No!" The momentary distraction would allow Bucky to slam a metal fist into the side of Franklin Hall's face. Graviton would lift Bucky into the air and slowly close his fist to compress him, but Taskmaster would pull herself up from the side of the building with panther claws and would run forwards, drawing her sword and stabbing it through Graviton's chest. His body would stay in the air and start to glow brighter, and Taskmaster and Bucky, who had been dropped when Graviton was killed, would run towards the edge and leap into the river below, followed by Ghost, who would exit the now still and smoking machine just as they jumped, seeing Graviton's body, and leap after her teammates. Graviton's body would explode in a giant explosion that caused the building to collapse. We would cut to Joe hiding in the mostly destroyed ground floor, desperately trying to free his hands and mouth while John Walker stalks him. John would find him, draw a pistol from his belt, and fire 2 shots, which the boy would just manage to dodge. The building would shake with Graviton's explosion, and a section of the remaining ceiling would fall onto Joe, knocking him to the ground and pinning his legs. Just then, Yelena would run in and slam her batons into John's face, causing him to drop the pistol and stumble back. They would engage in a fight, with John having his shield and Yelena her batons, and eventually John would pin her down. "Why are you doing this?" she would ask. "Special orders," he would reply, straight from the top. "But he's a kid. He is a weapon." The pistol would be just out of reach of Yelena's hand. "I'm sorry, Yelena, but you are now a liability." He would raise his shield above his head, and Yelena would lunge for a gun, but the shield would be coming down too fast. "Freeze, soldier!" Joe would shout, having just managed to finally ungag himself. US agent would freeze, his shield just above Yelena's neck, and she would fire 3 shots into John's chest. His body would collapse, but she'd push it off herself and go and free Joe. She'd get up to see the rest of the Thunderbolts staring at the scene, but they'd just turn their backs and walk outside. 3-credit scene. So a government official, maybe even President Ross, but maybe not depending on what happens in Captain America Brave New World, is asking Valentina what will happen to the team now that Walker is dead and Elena has disappeared, as the 2 of them walk down a prison corridor. Valentina would list off a few names of potential candidates: Melissa Gold, Eric Joston, and the person would say, "That's all well and good, but who will lead them?" They arrive outside a cell with a man reading a book. Zemo looks up and smiles. Post-credit scene. Sam Wilson is at the houseboat with his family when he gets a knock on the door. He opens it to find Elena Belova there. "I'm here to join the Avengers." Thank you for listening to my pitch of a Thunderbolts movie for the MCU, because currently the name of a Thunderbolts movie is the Thunderbolts Asterix, which means it could be changed to something like Dark Avengers or Siege. So yeah, comment down below what you liked or didn't like about this pitch, and also some suggestions about what movies I should write pitches for next. I'm going to do one for Doomsday as soon as I watch Deadpool 3, which I might have done by the time this comes out, but yeah. So if you enjoyed this, maybe go and check out my Young Avengers pitch, and maybe even my What If Black Swan was in Infinity War video. Have a great day. Ta-ta.